Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man with such a strong sense of direction that as a boy, he once shot a homing pigeon, found the message it was carrying, and instinctively delivered it to the right address. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who thinks Waze is for amateurs.
I actually am a huge fan of Waze, but I do have a great sense of direction.
You do, and like... You're somebody
I use Waze. I don't use Waze for directions. I use it for traffic reports and police reports.
Yeah, we know why you use it. Yeah, we anyone who's been in the car with you understands why you use it.
Lord help me.
May I say that you are somewhat smug, but recently less smug since I went to Legacy Navigators about sense of direction, because I was not born with the same homing pigeon-like skills. So
you were once scraping the bottom of the barrel, and you have ascended. I won't say how high, but
hey, bottom of the third, I'll take it. All right. Today's episode, it's a doozy. I'm very much looking forward to getting into this, because who doesn't want to know how to turn potential into reality? Like, I think that's everybody.
One of my favorite Pastor Keith quotes, and he doesn't have this as a leadershipology. I think I'm one of the only people that quote him on this, but I loved it when he said it. He said this when I was younger. He said, eventually the guy with all the potential is the guy that gets fired.
Yeah.
It's great to have potential, but eventually you've got to turn it into something.
That's exactly right. Now, where do we see the most potential that's on display where people get really excited about it? Because when you're a kid, what's possible for you? Pretty much anything, but that's not really defined. In sports,
when you're a kid, it's great to have potential.
Oh yeah, and as well you should. And here's the thing:
I think I sent you that video I saw on Instagram the other day of this is how bad it's got, of them talking about like a 6th grade baseball player.
Oh, man.
Did I send that to you?
No, but I've lived in that
just
world.
Like literally they were talking about, it was a joke video, it was a satire video, but they were talking about some 6-year-old or 6th grade baseball player and like what his contract value was.
Yeah, well, you know what though, man? I could go in. I know baseball well enough to tell you that they really are looking at, like, from the time that kids are in 6th grade, there is now a pathway for those guys to get up to the to kind of be on the right scouts' radars. Anyways, that's not where we were going with that, but it's an interesting tidbit. So it's not actually that ridiculous. But here's the thing: if you're listening to this, the good news is you have potential. No matter what age you are, no matter how much life you think you have left, there is some unrealized potential. And that's why we want to tap into this episode, because especially at the end of the year, G, how many people are out there going like, yeah, 2025. I hope everybody listening to this is going, 2025 is going to be the best year of my life, and that you are just gearing up to absolutely destroy it. I hope you're not letting the what if monster get you.
And if you want to start it off the right way, join us January 1st at the Firestarter.
Yeah, nice little plug there. I didn't see that one coming. But yeah, I hope you're looking to finish strong. But here's the thing. You don't have to wait till the new year. You can start now. And so that's why we wanted to drop this episode now. But in sports is where we see the most potential. So I want to share a story about some unrealized potential. And it's one of the most famous bust stories in the past 25 years.
You are the sportsman.
I am the sportsman. This is a great place to look for potential. Because, like, how excited does everybody get for the draft in whatever sport you're in?
Sure.
Like, oh, this guy could be, he's the next insert whoever. He's the next Michael Jordan. He's the insert this, whatever. Well,
my favorite draft is the dodgeball draft.
Yeah, that's actually truth, and that will make no sense to new listeners or to people who don't know about our Mighty Men tribe of men that we get to lead at Elevate Life Church in Frisco, where we do actually go to camp and play dodgeball.
Different type of dodgeball, but okay, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for distracting us. So in 1998, in my hometown of San Diego, there was a buzz because there was 2 top quarterbacks coming out of college football. One of them was a young man named Peyton Manning. Ooh. The other one was a guy named Ryan Leaf. And these guys, nobody could decide who was going to be 1, who was going to be 2. Well, turns out that the Indianapolis Colts, the number 1 pick, took Peyton Manning. Now, what we didn't know was at the time, apparently Ryan Leaf called the Colts and said, I don't want to play in Indianapolis. Take Peyton Manning. So we don't know if they were actually leaning towards Ryan Leaf, but man, did they avoid something. So Ryan Leaf gets drafted number 2 overall by the Chargers. Okay. Huge hype, strong arm. He's 6'5". Man, this guy's got all the tools, everything. Everybody's so excited.
I was gonna say, why have I not heard of this guy? But
well, there's a reason.
Went to the Chargers.
Yeah, exactly. And the Chargers are not known for being great. But he got at the time what was the largest contract. It was like a 4-year, $31 million contract for a rookie quarterback. It was the largest at the time. He turned out to be an absolute bust. In his career, he totaled a 4-17 record with 14 touchdowns and 36 interceptions in 25 career starts. So from there,
how many interceptions?
Yeah, 36
in 25 starts.
In 25 starts.
Oh my!
Hey man, it's only one and a bit per game. We can get past that. So yeah, just absolutely did not live up to the potential at all. But it gets worse. From there, he actually went, and unfortunately, he got addicted to painkillers. And then he went down that steep spiral. He eventually got arrested for theft and burglary, went to jail, and ended up finding himself again in there, so it is a good story. He has made good. He actually found a lot of therapy through golf. He started working for a guy and TAing for a guy that uses golf as therapy. But what's crazy is he got into such a depression while he was in jail. Like, he stopped going outside because one time he went outside and a guy asked him to throw a football with him, and everybody was like watching him because it's like, wow, this ex-NFL quarterback in jail is throwing football. So he was like, I'm just never going to go outside again because he was all about him. He found out later that the guy he was throwing the football to, it was his birthday, and that was like one of the highlights of his life. And so he realized, he's like, man, I'm being really selfish. I need to stop being so focused on myself. He ended up spending 32 months in prison. He thinks he could have got out in 9 if he hadn't been so depressed because he kept not even turning up for paroles. And it wasn't until somebody talked to him and was like, dude, I'm getting better in here, and you're sitting around with your head in your hands. So somebody else snapped him out of his funk. He got out, started TAing, doing good things to help other people. And it actually has like a positive spin, but will forever go down as one of the biggest busts in the history of the NFL.
That's crazy.
And it's an absolute insane story. And we see this all the time where guys are like just not realizing their potential. Now, I don't think we have too many NFL draft picks that are listening to this right now, but we may, who knows. But what we all have is people that have some unrealized potential, something that they know that God has put inside them that as of yet, they've not seen it come out. And so we want to get into this because there is a clear path. There is a very key ingredient, and we're going to give you the breakdown of that ingredient. And we're going to lay it all out to hopefully give you some inspiration, some motivation, and some know-how for going out there and making it happen.
So let's talk about how to turn some potential into reality.
Let's do that, G. But you know what? I want to give people a little understanding of this because if this was the Fast Track podcast, we would just be like, hey, here's 30 seconds to microwave potential and come out with reality. I want to share a little story about this.
Go read a Business Insider article, and they'll tell you the 7 things to, maximize how much you're getting paid at work.
Right, and we'll link to it in the show notes. All the Forbes articles tell you exactly how you should be a billionaire by tomorrow. But in all reality, like this, there's a price that you're going to have to pay to realize your potential. And I like to look around at people, and because everybody, if you said, hey, just go hammer down for like X amount of time, and then you'll get this, I think a lot of people would be like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. There's no guarantee like that. So recently, my co-host and friend Garrett Unkelbach was speaking to a Fortune 50 company down in Nashville. It's a very big, well-known company in the tech space. He was giving a keynote speech to their sales force, and I watched him deliver. It's called Foundation of an Unstoppable Team. We actually have a podcast on Foundations of an Unstoppable Team that I will link to in the show notes. But so Garrett gives this keynote speech, right? And this is a multi-billion-dollar company. At the end, everyone, like I'm watching them while he's giving the speech, everyone's glued to every word that you were saying. You held the room very well. And by the way, this was the end of the conference. So typically not a time when people have a lot of attention span left. They were glued to his words. At the end, the leader of the whole sales organization gets up and was like, man, I'm all in on what you said, Garrett Unkelbach. Like, you just blew us away. You were exactly what we need. Could not have been more effusive of his praise. And it was like a real moment. As your friend and a guy who loves you, I was proud to be there for you. And I was like, let's go. I was sending pictures to your wife because that's like, I feel like part of my responsibility as her brother, adopted brothers, to send pictures of what you're doing. And so we got in the car and I said, hey, when did you write that? Because I knew you'd had it for a little while. And he said, oh, I wrote it when I got out of the SEAL teams. It was 8 years previously. So here's a guy who's trained at the highest level. Literally, I could go on and on about how elite the Navy SEALs are compared to any organization. Wrote a speech when he got out because he wanted to make sure he wrote down what he had learned while he was in the teams. You got out of the Navy and you've got a speech? Cool, we'll just put you with the president. You can just go on the news and read it because that's how life works. No, you're going to go and you're going to give a bunch of speeches to small rooms. You're going to talk about other things. You're going to practice and give this presentation to small companies, and you're going to build up and you're going to earn. And then 8 years later, you're going to have your moment. Oh, and that's, by the way, that's after you got a beat down for 6 years in the SEAL teams.
And
awesome.
I got paid a lot to do that speech that day.
For sure.
But the content of when I wrote it was no different.
Which is amazing.
98, 99% exactly the same of when I wrote it 8 years prior.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, my speaking ability got better since then. My delivery of it got better, but the content didn't change. And just like on this podcast and some other areas of my life, content is kind of like potential. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh man, like I wrote this great book and nobody wants to buy it.
Yeah. Well, Cody Bobet, who has one of the what is it the number one
You're gonna
best-selling?
have to reference that episode.
I will, but he that's one of our most listened to episodes of all time. Cody Bobet
Love
came on
Cody.
and talked about pursuing the dreams God gave him. He launched a book that he wrote that's now the number one men's bestseller for Christian men called Soul Con, which if you're listening to this, you should get it. It's an amazing book, great to do with a group of men. The day he launched it, he sold 17 copies. But why are we telling you this? Think about in your mind the things that you really dream of, the things that like bother you, the things that you like you are so passionate about, the things you think God's put in your heart, and ask yourself the question: what does the road in your mind look like to get there? Because I just gave the example of Garrett and being there for that moment with him. And so often I think we're like, yeah, we have these really linear paths. And the truth is we have no idea how long it's going to take to get there or what it's going to take. But we're setting this out because there's some really key ingredients that are going to help you get into realizing your dreams. And so we're going to give you more examples like that. But I just wanted to paint the picture. It's not going to be easy.
I'm going to have more moments like that in my life where I sowed a seed and 8 years later it's coming to pass. And what I hope out of this podcast, what I want for people that are listening, is that this is going to put you on a path for the same thing. That some of the things that you do next year, that some of the things that you're doing today are preparing you and opening doors for 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now for you to have extremely victorious moments.
Yeah, I love that. All right, well, let's start, G. So the very first thing, right, because we're going to go from potential to reality, is we got to assess some potential. This is where you got professional scouts in all sports and all these talent people in HR companies, and everybody is assessing potential all the time, and we're not very good at it, right? I mean,
you do have to become aware of, and we have a podcast on awareness that you should definitely listen to if you've never listened to it. But we have you have to become aware of really what you're capable of, and this is where, for me, the first time in my life, I was 18 years old, and I prayed a prayer, and I said, God, why did you make me this way?
Right.
Because I realized I had some potential that I felt like was unique or strange, didn't fit in where I was at in my life. I was like, man, what am I supposed to do with this? I realized there is potential in some of these qualities that I have, but I don't know what to do with it.
Right. And when you're assessing potential, I mean, so like what Garrett said, at that point, you didn't know what to do with it because you were a young man, and you were very raw. You need to know what you're trying to make, right? If you're going to assess potential, I mean, if I'm trying to assess potential for an NBA player or a horse jockey, very, very different criteria for what's going to count as potential. So the first thing is you need to have some sort of idea of what you're aiming for. That's a very obvious starting point. But a lot of people can like start to look at themselves and, you know, I could, like, especially when you're younger, you can do anything in your mind, right? Like, I could be a professional artist, I could be whatever. And you see some people carry that into their life. And so we've talked about this before, G, but you can get delusional about that. And what we don't want is we want people to have a strong sense of belief, but we want that to be from a place of resiliency and identity and not delusion.
And we'll talk more about that later. And it's not so much that you have to have the perfect, picture
Correct.
of reality before you get there. I can tell you, like, this reference won't mean a lot to very many people, but I used to read Popular Science all the time. Mm-hmm. You remember Popular Science?
Of course, yeah.
And there was an article that came out in Popular Science. This is in 2008. I need to go back and get this magazine and keep a copy of it. I may still have one, but it was, this was after, we've talked about this once before on the podcast, how the Space Shuttle Columbia coming apart had a big impact on my life. I was out in West Texas and was right underneath it as it happened. And so post Columbia and the space shuttle coming apart there, they started looking at new ways to bring people back from outer space. And there's this Popular Science article about guys jumping from basically, in like a Halo Master Chief suit, jumping back from outer space to the Earth, right? Because they do that in that video game. And this is, reality modeling, science fiction. But so I saw that and I was like, man, that's what I want. I want to be, Master Chief in Halo. I want to be an astronaut. I want to do all of these things. And that was really what I was like, that's the reality that I want. And the path that was in front of me was being a Navy SEAL. Now, am I an astronaut today? Did I become Master Chief from Halo? No, but I did end up developing my potential. So it's not necessarily that you have to have exactly what it is, but you have to have something that you're working towards.
Right. Exactly. And we covered delusion versus resiliency actually in episode 81. You go into it in depth. So I'm going to link to, we're going to reference a lot of episodes here rather than recant them to you. We'll just link to them in the show notes so you can go back and listen should you want to. And we'd, of course, highly recommend that. So we don't want you to be delusional, but also you don't need to have the firmest grasp on reality. I think there's also a healthy sense of I don't want to say delusion, but you're going to have belief. I hope you have belief beyond what you see, because you said, G, that potential is a seed, right?
Yep.
It's literally just a seed. The reality that you're trying to get to is the tree.
Yeah, it has to grow into something, and you can see a tree in your mind, but all you have is the seed,
right?
And you want it to become something, and so there is a process. And just like a seed doesn't, Houdini poof and become a tree, there's a process that it goes through, and there's a process of turning potential into reality. Before potential can become reality, it has to become a commitment,
right?
Like potential is just what could be. When you make a commitment is saying this is what will be. You have decided this is what will be. Right. When you sign a contract, when you get married, any type of commitment you make, you're saying this is what's going to happen.
Right.
Potential is what could be. Commitments are what will be. Right. And so before we're going to talk about how to get from commitment to reality here in a second, but I just want to say, to get from potential to commitment, there's really two key things that you need. This is declarations and beliefs. Declarations is literally you saying this is what will be. Right. You say declarations over your day. There's a declaration that I like to read over myself, and I want to read it to you guys. This is, you can write your own declarations. You can decide for yourself. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I'm saying for my day to day. But I'm going to read you some of my declarations. Before I do, when I was going through SEAL training, when I remember my test for my first PST, that I went out and I was like, I have to run under 9 minutes.
Right.
I know if I run under 9 minutes, I'll get a contract today. And I think I ran an 8:58 or an 8:59. And I remember just burning my lungs to the core, and what I kept saying to myself, right? I had just a short declaration. It wasn't as long as what I'm about to read. I had a short declaration that I would just say to myself. And when it was at my toughest, I would just, instead of letting my thoughts go negative and passive, I was active, and I just continued to say this. But that's the power of declarations.
Yeah.
Declarations are you saying what will be. And I want to read you my daily declaration. Maybe this will encourage you to write some of your own. Your day will be excellent and prepared. Your thoughts will be focused and clear. Your plans will progress. Your visions will mature. Important things to remember for today. You may experience pain, frustration, tiredness, doubt, or fear. In any event, you must overcome. More importantly, you must remember that God has a great plan for your life. You are destined for important things, and your life has a purpose. Everything you are going through, God can and will use for your growth and His glory. You need to be faithful, pray often, love well, and work hard. Go the extra mile and push yourself to become everything that God has called you to be. You are more than able. Lastly, you need to know that today matters. This day, specifically this one right now, is an opportunity for you to choose. And this is an exponential choice. Everything you do today will be multiplied by your ability to focus on one small decision at a time, beginning with this one. Make a commitment and stay on path. See it through and finish your day knowing that your work is finished with a job well done. See to completion that you are a good servant and a faithful steward.
I love that, man. You talked about beliefs and declarations. How many beliefs are in there when you're talking about like God having making you to overcome, and that He has a plan and a purpose for your life? I love that, man. Because
why don't you just decide to start your day there every day? Hey, this is what will be.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't decide what your day is going to look like, something else or someone else will decide for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, this is how to turn potential into a commitment. Declarations. Right. When I say a declaration, I'm deciding, hey, this is what will be.
Right.
And in saying that, I'm making a commitment. I'm going to do the work.
Right.
Right. In that declaration, I'm reminding myself, I'm challenging myself. Hey, bro, you got some truck to pull.
Right.
There's work that you need to do.
Yeah, because the path that we said, remember, I'm just reminding people, there's the three parts of the path. Is it goes from potential to commitment and commitment to reality. So many people will have potential, but they never even committed to the work to go and realize the reality, because
I think the wrong path is, potential, hope, reality.
That's exactly. I'm just waiting for my ship to come in.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I hope that works out for you, but I haven't seen it work too often.
So the other piece here, and then I want to get on to, and what I want us to focus on today, is turning commitments into reality.
Right.
Potential into commitments into reality. But the other piece, we talked about declarations, you deciding what will be. And then the other piece of turning potential into commitments is beliefs.
Yeah.
And we talk about beliefs a ton here on this podcast. We've done many episodes on it.
Episode 3 is actually on core beliefs.
Beliefs, the definition of beliefs is, and we also talk about beliefs a lot in Mindset Mastery. The definition of beliefs is the things that you know are true but can't prove.
Yeah.
Right. And more than just needing beliefs, you need these specific beliefs to turn, not just I need beliefs, but I'm going to give you some beliefs really quick that are what turn your potential into commitment. If you've been around, if you're not new here, you know where I'm going with this. This is called the infinite potential unlock. There are 2 things that my parents said often to me as a child. They said it from the time I was 5, and they said it over and over and over again, and it stuck with me. And these are the things that I knew were true. Number 1, my parents said to me, son, God has a great plan for your life, right? And I've shared some recent revelation on what that meant to them, and go listen to our parenting episode. I won't diverge into that, but my parents were telling me, God has a great plan for your life. That is a purpose, right? God has a purpose for you. That's understanding like, hey, it's not just random or haphazard that I'm here, but that's part of the infinite potential unlock. And hey, today's episode is how to turn potential into reality. You need the infinite potential unlock. Yeah. That's the first part of the infinite potential unlock is purpose. The second part is this. You can have anything you want in life as long as you're willing to pay the price for it. Not you can have whatever you want. You can have whatever you're willing to pay the price for. And that is the potential piece. And when you put purpose and potential together, by the way, we have a great episode on purpose as well. When you put purpose and potential together, that's when you get the infinite potential unlock. And you realize God has put me here and I'm infinitely capable to go out and do whatever God has put me on the earth to do.
Yeah. And that was so much of what you were saying in that declaration is that today matters. And when you understand how, we talked about it, the seeds that you're sowing today is going to be the harvest of sometime tomorrow. You don't know how long, but it's going to be in there. So you better sow well. And having that belief and that realization is going to give you that strong sense of purpose just in an average Tuesday or whatever it is.
So beliefs and declarations will turn your potential into a commitment.
Right. So I'm committed now, G.
And specifically those beliefs, not just beliefs in general, but the infinite potential unlock. You need that and declarations turn your potential into commitment. Now to turn commitment into reality, that is a grand thing to do. And it's actually the definition of grit. The definition, if you read Angela Duckworth's book on grit, fantastic book, she defines grit as the ability to follow through on commitments.
Right. And that's what we're saying is the key ingredient here is the grit.
Right. Grit. Hey, grit. We can end the podcast, right? That's what you need.
Yeah,
you just need
grit.
You need some grit. I'll give you my definition of grit. It's really simple. Nick has always laughed at me for this.
I have. I will continue to, by the way.
You should listen to our episode from it was last year with my friend Joe Sweeney, who taught me about having a personal board of advisors.
I do really like that.
It's a great episode. And he's a New York Times bestseller. And I have a personal board of advisors after Joe Sweeney taught me this. And one of the people on my personal board of advisors is Forrest Gump.
Of course. He's a fellow veteran in the military, so that makes sense, right?
But here's what I love about Forrest Gump, right? I love his attitude. I love a lot of things about Forrest Gump, but he just kept going. And my personal definition of grit is you just keep going.
Right.
You don't. Forrest Gump is not the most talented. He's not any of those things. You will win in life if you just keep going. If you want to kill your potential, quit on everything. If you want to see what's really there, you're going to have to finish. You're going to have to follow through. That's the only way that you're going to get to the end of your potential. When you quit, you kill your potential.
That's so good, man. I was reading, it's funny, I was reading in, I think it's Matthew 23, when Jesus says to Peter, Peter, Satan's asked to sift you like wheat, but I prayed for you that your faith would not fail. And when you return, strengthen your brothers. And I looked up the Hebrew of that and I went into it. The definition of failure, it's only a failure when you give up. Because think about what Peter did after that. He denied the very person that he told 5 minutes earlier, I'd give my life for you. He denies him 3 times, runs away scared, and flees completely. And yet that was not failure, according to our Lord and Savior, because he came back. And that's what I love. What you just said is 100% accurate. Just keep going. It's not over until you quit. If you quit, that's the only time it's final. If you just get yourself back up and keep going, you're in the fight.
So you got to have, by the way, with declarations and us finishing the first part of the bridge here, along with declarations is having quotes have always been a big part of my life, and it's why it's easy for me to share them because they're who I am. They're in my DNA. They've so inspired me. And one of the, just on this topic of grit, there's really two quotes. I was saying you've got to have quotes and mantras along with your declarations,
right.
Those things that help become who you are. But one of my favorites just on this topic is Les Brown. It's not so much a quote, but it's a speech. He has a great speech where he talks about it's not over until I win.
Right.
He's
what a great attitude.
Right?
Yeah.
That's his definition of follow through. He's going to keep going. Hey, it's not over until I win. He knows it's an inevitability. He knows it's his destiny to be great. And one of the early ones that stuck with me was Lincoln, who said, I will prepare and someday my time will come.
Yeah.
Again, he's got the infinite. Lincoln's got the infinite potential unlock.
Right.
I know there's a plan for my life, and I can have anything I want as long as I'm willing to pay the price for it. I'm going to prepare. My moment's coming.
Very good. Okay, so remember, we said the path for you to go from potential to realities. Your potential has to turn into commitments, and you're going to do that with beliefs and declarations. And then where we're going to focus on, where we want to finish up, is to really dive into grit.
So to go, go from commitments to reality is grit.
Yeah, and it is the key ingredient. When you're assessing potential, we would say highlight grit, because you're going to need it. As to what Garrett just said, you're going to have to just keep going, because that's what's going to take you from your commitments to actually seeing your potential become reality.
So, again, Angela Duckworth, Grit, fantastic book. She talks about grit as the ability to follow through on commitments. What we're saying is grit is just keep going.
Right.
But we want to bless you a little extra, and we wrote an acronym for what grit is.
We did.
It's a little bit, this is a deeper definition, more of a breakdown of how you can have some grit in your life. So the G in grit is this, it's growth mindset, right? You can read another great book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And in this book, she tells her story, and she talks about really my growth mindset is this. It's believing that you can get smarter.
Yeah.
She does a cool study. She talks about a cool study in the book of little kids and math, and kids who believe they were good at math and kids who didn't believe they were good at math. I can tell you I'm good at math, but I resonate so much with her story.
Right.
The reason I'm good at math, I did kindergarten twice.
Yeah.
Right. And in that time, I also, I won't go into like all my family backstory, but I had a family member who helped me because they were spending an extra time with our family. I had a family member help me with multiplication tables. So when I went into first grade and we play the game where you go from one person's desk to the next person's desks, and the teacher holds up the I was unbeatable, right? Because I had so much practice, not because I was so intelligent.
Right.
I was just way more prepared than anybody else. And you know what I thought? I was like, I'm the best person at math.
I'm a genius at math.
I was really just good at flashcards.
Right.
But because I believed I was good at math, it followed me for the rest of my life.
Which is an amazing thing. And we actually, that's episode 63. We actually covered that in depth if anybody wants to do that. But the G in grit stands for growth mindset. And that's where you were talking about. I mean, a huge thing in this is what you believe is ultimately your mind, whether you can or you can't, you're right. It's your favorite quote from Henry Ford.
Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. You can, I had a teacher who I wrote a whole paper on that in high school, and I had a teacher tell me, she goes, that's stupid. And I said, you know what, you're right. It was for her. It was stupid for her. It's not stupid for me. It's been a foundation for my life. I've decided, right? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. It's a part of my infinite potential unlock. Growth mindset will lead to innovation in your life. Growth mindset will lead to new areas. It'll lead to better relationships.
Yeah.
You have a fixed mindset in your life. This is the way things are. They'll never change. It will make you dark. It will make you depressed. It'll turn you into a crook.
Yeah.
Right? This is the way this is, everyone's against me and things can't get better. This is this is your world, Nick, but that's the permanent, pervasive.
Yeah.
And what's the
Dr. Martin P. Seligman? Yeah, it's permanent, pervasive, and personal. Those are the three characteristics of depression.
Right.
And he wrote a great book
That's
called
a fixed
Learned Optimism.
mindset.
Yeah, it is. And if you think about that, it is really logical, because if something's not going to change and it's impossible, why would you even try?
Right.
Right. And what's the beginning of the impossible, G?
Believe that. No,
if I had to?
If I had to, what would it take?
Yeah.
Right. It's saying I can do it. I know there's a way. I can't see it. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to find it.
Yeah, I love that, man. All right, what's the R in grit?
The R in grit. So moving on from growth mindset, and really you need all four of these ingredients in the growth mindset. And some of them you'll use at different times. The growth mindset, you're going to keep with you all the time. You got to continue. You got to know it. Even maybe you're 65 years old and you've developed a lot of your ability. Don't let go of your growth mindset.
Yeah,
right? Continue to grow.
I actually have a plan that I'm going to learn piano whenever my kids are old and grown, because by that time I'll be, I don't even know how old I'll be, but at that point you would think, oh, you can't learn an instrument, but that's when I'm going to learn it.
So the R in grit is resilience. There's a lot of definitions for resilience. My favorite story of resilience, something that's inspired me, and really something that I think SEAL training screens for resilience.
Yeah.
Because resilience is different than confidence. I'll come back to that in a second. But one of my favorite stories of resilience, this is like 2012, 2011 of Elon Musk, and he was being interviewed based on SpaceX.
Yeah.
And I think this was right after the first Falcon 9 blew up. And Neil Armstrong had publicly stated, like, the privatization of Space Force is not the way. And that was Elon Musk's hero, right? His hero is Neil Armstrong. And his hero is saying, like, what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
And he's, like, crying in this 60 minutes interview or 60 seconds interview and says, I'm going to keep going, right? Resilience is based upon belief. Resilience is based upon identity. Resilience is not based upon what's happening around you.
Right.
That's confidence. Confidence is I make 100 free throws. I believe I can make another one.
Right.
Resilience is I've missed 100, but I know I'll make the next one.
Man, yeah.
Big difference, right? Confidence is based on externals. Resilience is based on internals. It's based on your identity. It's based upon what you know and believe about yourself. And there's a scary difference, and it's a challenging difference between resilience and delusion. You can be delusion, and I think it's a Hall of Fame miss. You never want to be this person. This isn't a political statement, but it was a political moment. You don't ever want to be Hillary Clinton in 2016,
right?
When she was, on TV saying, "Why am I not 13 points ahead?" She had lost it. She didn't know where she was, and she didn't know why she wasn't winning.
Right.
She was delusional about where she was and what her position was. You never want to get to that place. And I'll give you, we have a whole episode on this, on resilience and delusion, so I'm not going to give that entire deep dive. But I'll tell you, it's really the difference between resilience and delusion is what your purpose is.
Yeah.
If it's about you, it's so easy to become delusional. When you have a greater purpose, right? Like people told me that I was arrogant. People told me I was delusional and how I felt about becoming a Navy SEAL. I didn't think it was just for me. And because of that, I was willing to make a bet, make a wager, push all my chips in on my life, knowing like this is a part of my destiny, and my destiny isn't for me, it's for other people.
Yeah.
This is Joseph in his own life, right? Joseph could have been considered delusional when he's 10 years down his journey of being a slave and a prisoner, and he continues to believe that he's destined to be a great leader. Mm-hmm. Right? That was his dream as a young boy, is that he would be a leader, that his brothers would bow down to him. And he continued to hold on to that. But Joseph knew that God had a great plan for his life, right? And it's not about him. And again, go listen to our episode on resilience. This is one of the key pieces to get you from commitment to a new reality. But that key ingredient between resilience and delusion is, what's your story about? If your story is about you, it's very easy to become delusional.
Yeah, and by the way, those resilience, we actually did 2 episodes, G. It was our second ever episode because
right.
we knew how important it was. And by the way,
it's one of my favorite
If
topics.
you haven't listened to it, yes, we know there's an
That's why it was episode number 2.
Right, and we know there's an audio glitch in it because everybody that listens to it goes, hey, I don't know if you know this, and I appreciate them telling me every time, but that was also a time that you looked me very intently, and Garrett didn't say, hey, how do we fix this? He just said, hey, this can never happen again, like with a very intense face at me. I was like, check. And guess what? It hasn't. And then the other episode that we revisited resiliency was number 81.
You were resilient there.
I was.
You didn't let me run you off.
Well, I think I've shown a lot of resiliency across the course of this.
The scientific definition of resilience is the ability of a substance to return to its form.
Right.
Right. And so like you throw a rubber ball at the ground, it's going to compress for a second and then return to its natural form quickly, and it'll bounce off the ground.
Yeah.
You throw, a wad of cookie dough at the floor, and it's just going to splat.
Yeah.
And the difference between you bouncing off the bottom in life and you splatting on the bottom in your life is resiliency, which again comes from identity and having the right purpose. Is your ability to bounce back to your natural form. Hey, these difficult things that happen to me, that's not who I am, and that doesn't define me.
Yeah. And if your identity is founded on things that you've accomplished, what people say about you or what you possess, you will crumble. You won't have resiliency. And we actually covered that recently in episode 159. I feel like that was a hidden gem because I know I've actually gone back and listened to that.
And this is like the index episode.
It is. This
We're hitting all the references
the index are all of the podcast. But look, man, what we talk about is all linked. It's not like we just show up here and like put our finger in the air and go like, hey, I saw a cloud. We should talk about that. Like this,
it's fun.
We're living this.
It's fun to prepare for podcasts now. And as we're doing it, it's like, I don't have fully indexed in my memory every single episode that we've done. There was a time when it's like, oh, that's episode 32. But now it's like, I know we talked about that. What episode was that?
What's a blessing is if somebody asks me a question and like, I'm like, hey, I'll tell you what's even faster. Go listen to this. That happened to me recently. It's such a nice thing to be able to do.
Well, and not only, it's not like, hey, I don't have the time to tell you. It's like,
this is actually better.
This is a better answer than what I could give you right now.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the IG because I wanted to highlight your resilience will never be higher than whenever you have an identity that's based on God. That is just facts.
And that's, well, again, listen to you can link that one too if you want, Nick, is the, my story, because a lot of me going through SEAL training is very much a story of resilience. So, and you're going to use, I talked about growth mindset. You're going to use that all throughout this journey. Resilience is something that's going to be needed and something that's going to be tested again when you're bouncing off the bottom.
Right. Or if you just have an abusive podcast host. Anyways, okay. And the I in grit
is increasing capacity. Right, and this is a little bit different than growth mindset. Increasing capacity is not so much a belief. Think about it this way: you can go through something really difficult that just beats you up. You could run a marathon, and did that marathon make you better, or did that marathon make you worse? And that really what that hinges on. Like some people would go through a marathon. Like some people's moment at the end of a marathon is like, man, I never want to do that again.
Right.
Some people finish a marathon and they're like, man, what else can I do?
Right. Yep.
And maybe you've said that. Don't beat yourself up about it. Maybe you're someone who's done a marathon and has said like, man, I never want to do that again. Let me just tell you, if you want to kill your potential, have that type of attitude with your life.
Right.
If you want to, Zig Ziglar, the man, your attitude determines your altitude. And how you feel about the challenges that you go through, that is an attitude and perspective situation, right? Also, again, just adding to the reference list today, we have episodes on attitude and perspective. Perspective is my superpower. It's one of my favorite things. Got episodes on both of those.
I think you're just doing this because I'm going to have to link to these in the show notes. Garrett's like, hey, who cares that you have to already edit the podcast? Why don't you go and research all these episodes?
Nick told me he had a really busy week the rest of the week, so I was like, okay, I have a great idea.
Hey, I don't want you to spend time with your family on Christmas. Thanks, G. Appreciate you, man. That's kind of you.
Increasing capacity. Only half joking. Increasing capacity is very much about attitude and perspective. Attitude, I love this understanding of attitude. We've taught on this, and by the way, we talk about this in Mindset Mastery. An old definition of attitude is, and if you look it up in Webster's 1828, when you paint a painting, you're capturing an attitude. When you draw or when you craft a sculpture, it's an attitude, right? So think about your life that someone had to paint a portrait of you. What would you look like in the portrait? That's a reflection. Nick is he's posing right now.
Superman style.
That's a reflection of your attitude, right? Think about if the way you've acted your entire life was going to be captured in one snapshot, one portrait, one sculpture.
Man.
That are you looking at the ground? Are you looking up? What's the attitude on your face?
Yeah.
Right? When you look at the statue of David, it captures an attitude.
Yeah.
And so attitude is, you think, most people's understanding of attitude is like, their parents tell them as a kid, hey, you're having a bad attitude.
Right.
Don't talk back to me. Attitude is so much more powerful than that. Like Zig says, attitude determines your altitude. And the way that you look at the difficult things that you go through, whether it grows you or it beats you down, is about your attitude and perspective of the situation. And so increasing capacity, how this grows you from a commitment into reality, is what you've got to do is you got to look at your life. Like, let's just say, let's just shorten it and focus your reality on like 10 years from now.
Right.
Hey, we've got a 10-year plan. You should do that. You should also, for those of you who are listening to us and listening to this in the time frame, we're going to talk about a 10-year plan. If you want to join us on the fast track, right? And if you know what we're talking about, great. If not, that's okay. But if you have a 10-year plan for your life, you can have like some massive lofty goals. And I love the the quote, I think it's Bill Gates, who says most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years.
Yep.
The reason they underestimate what they can do in 10 years is because a lot of growth is happening and a lot of results aren't happening.
Right. That's exactly right.
You know, like for a business, a lot of preparation is happening, building the right team is happening, all of that. But financially, 80% of the growth from year 1 to year 10 might happen in the last 2 years.
Yeah, think about that.
This is what increasing your capacity in your life looks like. Right, man. I'm not at the place I want to be in my marriage. I'm not at the place I want to be in my business. I'm not at the place I want to be anywhere. But I'm going to continue to develop my skills. I'm going to have the right attitude. I'm going to increase my capacity, and then eventually I'm going to get to this place where I've grown so much that I'll accomplish the next 80% in the shortest amount of time. So you've got to look at this isn't just growth mindset, like believing you can be smarter, believing you can be more. This is doing the training and the work so that, man, benching 200 pounds used to be heavy for me. Now it's my warm up. Right. And that comes from you putting in the work.
Yeah. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. That's Jim Rohn.
That's a perspective.
Yeah. And it's a great perspective because you talking about the 80% in the last 2 years. I remember when GoPro blew up and one of their founders said, and they're like, wow, they're an overnight success. They're everywhere. And he goes, we're an 8-year overnight success.
Yeah.
And that's so many people. I mean, your story that I shared earlier about Oracle, about talking for the Fortune 50 company.
Yep.
I mean, that was 8 years. And so, I mean, it's not a coincidental number that you chose there. You don't know how long it's going to take. And I think that's where there's you have such a different insight, G, because the level that you trained at in the SEAL teams, I don't know that people really understand how high of a level you guys train at. I don't want to spend a long time, but like you tell a story about pool comp, which is in second phase. It's like the big buildup. And you failed pool comp how many times?
7
times, and every time it was for a twisted strap.
I passed on the 8th, which was my final attempt. Yeah. If I had failed 8 times, my story would not be the same.
It would be a guy who once attempted to be Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, rather than former Navy SEAL. Now here's the thing.
And you only get 4 attempts in one class. I got rolled to the next class and came down to my final attempt.
And the reason I wanted to share that, so Garrett spent, 2 hours underwater getting beat up and drowned?
Yeah, almost 2 hours, over an hour and a half.
And most people fail that test for either passing out or for passing out, right?
A pass on that test is 18 to 20 minutes of suffering underwater. And a lot of the guys who fail, it's like, first attempt 2 minutes, second attempt 6 minutes, pass. First attempt 10 minutes, second attempt pass.
Right. And so you did.
My shortest attempt was 12 minutes. Hey. My first attempt, 12 minutes, like, I'm going to crush it on the next one.
You could be the most experienced pool comp guy in the history of the Navy SEALs. But the point I'm making, so you would think, okay, because guys pass out all the time, and that's how they fail, is because they ran out of oxygen, they just pass out underwater and get pulled out. You never once, in every single one of these cases, you survived, you actually got your rig back to normal, and what they failed you on, you used to say a twisted strap, and that never made sense to me. It was literally an air hose that was twisted over that should have been...
My shoulder strap is twisted. So, as it comes, so it literally has nothing to do with the life-saving abilities of the equipment.
Even in real life, Garrett lived. If this was like, that wouldn't be the way it was in combat. No, you would have lived.
And the reality is, in combat, you'd be fine with a twisted strap.
Okay, and that's my point. So most people would be like, oh, come on, this is so stupid. Why are you guys trying? What does it matter? Exactly what you just said. I would be fine. That's not the point. We told you to do it like this.
This is the standard.
This is the standard, and it doesn't change. Think about that level of training. I don't know that people out there will have experienced that level of training, or even
if you
in their
allow
entire
twisted
life.
straps in training, that's where you have massive catastrophes in the reality.
Right.
When you train at a level no flaws are acceptable, that's where you survive in reality.
But I hear you say that, and because I'm around you so much, I just wanted to stress it for people. There is a level of training and a level of meticulousness and focus on detail that can take you and grow you to a level that you don't know is possible.
Well, I'll say this as I can't say it kindly. I'll just say it as bluntly as I can.
Shocker.
And this is really some of the lesson of increasing capacity. It's the lesson that those standards in the military taught me, and it's this painful lesson. You're not as good as you think you are.
There you go.
And it means that there's more for you to grow.
Yeah.
Right? You can hear that statement and say, oh, well, you don't know me. Right? And that's fine. Or you can hear that statement and say, check. Roger that. Yeah. But I can grow. Right. I can get better. I'm going to increase my capacity, and I will be good.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to highlight that, because I just think you've seen a level of training that most people don't even know exists. All right, G, and the last
This is everybody's favorite. I don't know anybody that doesn't love this last piece.
Yeah. T stands for...
Time.
Oh. That's not
right.
right.
Oh, you want to get there? You want to be great?
Yeah.
Oh, all it takes is time.
Well, how long? Oh, that's you don't know that until you'll find out.
Who doesn't love being patient? Right.
Yeah.
By the way, it's one of the things you shouldn't pray for.
Right. Well, people do. It's the number one list of qualities of love, though, in 1 Corinthians 13.
I would just say, be patient.
Ooh.
If you ask for patience, God will help you. But it's not a gift of patience. He will send you opportunities to learn patience.
Now, here's for all the growth hackers out there. Okay, so you're telling me that I need grit. I need beliefs and declarations to get from potential to commitments. I need grit to get from commitments to reality. And grit is really going to be the longest part of this journey. Okay, check. I'm in it. So we got a growth mindset. We've got resilience. We've got increasing capacity. Those are all controllables. Oh, time. Oh, that's unknown and uncontrollable. What's the shortcut? Yeah. No, there's no shortcut. Trees don't pop up overnight. You just got to go ahead and just ride that one out. That will break people, man.
I will give you a shortcut, though.
You're going to travel through time? Doc Brown from Back to the Future?
Almost.
Oh.
It's about the same.
Almost. Okay, Doc, let's hear it.
But this is a shortcut that comes at a cost.
Oh,
And most do. I want you to think about time this way. Time is one thing. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are.
Yep.
We all get 24 hours in a day.
Yep.
You can't change time. And I imagine we will figure out interstellar travel before we figure out time travel. It's probably one of those things that God has protected and man will never be.
I agree. I think it's a perfect picture of God because it's unchanging. It's like, oh, you don't like it? Well, it's still going to be the same.
But anyways, if you want to master time, think about this. If I put you through the most brutal of workout and I can put you through a bad workout, it would be the longest hour of your life.
Yeah.
If you watch your favorite movie, or if you're not a movie person, whatever your thing is, for some people it's play video games, for some people it's play golf.
Right.
Whatever that thing is, an hour will go by so fast.
Yeah, flies by.
The clock didn't change. How you felt about the time changed.
Right.
And so there's this equation in science and about velocity, and I won't get into like all the details of how velocity works, but velocity is defined as the rate of change of an object's position. And look at that as the rate of change of your life. And velocity is force and acceleration. And so think about force as like, again, the brutal workout.
Right.
Put you through a brutal workout, that hour is going to seem like a long
Time slowed down. Yeah.
And also, if you go play golf, time's going to speed up.
Right.
If you want to get there faster, a high level of effort, time will slow down for you. It feels like it's a longer time, but you get further in that amount of time.
Yeah, very good.
So look at it this way. If you're lazy, it'll feel like the amount of time is going to feel the same, but the actual duration of time won't be the same.
Yeah.
There's no actual shortcut for it. You can just get there faster. Look at it this way. You can walk around the track, took the same amount of steps, and it's slow, or you can sprint around the track. Similar amount of steps. I wouldn't say same amount of steps, same distance.
Right.
But you got there faster.
Yeah.
The distance isn't going to change, but your level of effort can change. And if you'll increase your level of effort, you can change how time works.
Yeah. I love that.
It's your only shortcut for changing the time equation.
Yeah. So I hope everybody out there is looking at this and going like, okay, check. Like, number one, don't quit, right? Like, you got to set out and have a clear picture of where you're going. And, you don't have to know everything. And here's a hint: you'll never know everything. So you want to have an end in mind and assess your potential. And then from there, it's a beliefs and declaration, man. Get yourself to the point where you're committed. You're like, I am in. There's no going back. Like your marriage, there's no option B. You're married. There's no end to it. And then from there, it's about gritting it out until you see it in reality. We've shared about moments that you realized. We shared about moments that other people realized, like I talked about GoPro. You can look it up. Look at your favorite artist. Find your favorite YouTuber and go back and see how many years they've been posting videos every week before, oh, man, they got millions of subscribers. So cool. The overnight thing, the microwave success, it's not real.
Yeah.
You got to sign yourself up. And that's why the key currency for realizing your potential is grit.
So if you want to get from potential to reality, first you got to get from potential to commitment. And the key to getting from commitment to reality is grit. There is no shortcut in life. You've just got to decide, I'm going to follow through on what I'm doing. This acronym we gave you for growth mindset, resilience, increased capacity, time. There's a lot to this episode, and there's a lot of references that we gave with it. So if you really want to unpack this and you've decided that you want to turn your potential into a reality, I would highly encourage you to not just listen to this episode, but listen to the references that go with it. We assembled it this way on purpose. If you'll take all of these pieces, again, it won't be easier, but at least you'll be on the right path. If you want to get from potential to reality, follow this process. And while I've got you, let me give you one last reminder to join us for the Firestarter.
Ooh.
Join us January 1st. You can sign up at theimpossible.life. Join us at the Firestarter and decide. And if you're either in the Dallas area or you want to travel to be with us, we love when people come in from out of town. Last year we had like 150 of us, Nick.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic time. We're going to kick off our year in the most brutal and most wonderful way that you can, with intention, with some cold water, with people who are charging hard on life. Join us for the Firestarter.